Our speaker this evening, Michael Hintlian, is a full-time photojournalist based in Boston, and his work has appeared in major U.S. dailies and international periodicals and has been exhibited and collected by museums and galleries worldwide. He is at the moment working on archiving the over 4,000 images he took as part of this project that he's going to be talking about this year. How many? 4,000 rolls. Oh my gosh, I'm totally wrong. All right, 4,000 rolls, which is crazy. 36 pictures on each roll? Okay. That's a lot of pictures. Well, please help me welcome Michael Hintlian. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be in this fabulous space. I've never been in here. Though I've walked by probably 12,000 times, and it's breathtaking. So it's an honor to be here. I'm not a professional speaker. This is what I do, and so what I'd like to do is invite your questions as we look at pictures and I talk about my experiences and so on. So I'd like to keep it informal and as fun as possible. Late in 1996, I was in the downtown area. I was actually on Atlantic Avenue on assignment for a client, and I saw what appeared to be some activity. I saw men and some women in hard hats trying to wrestle with this huge piece of steel, and it was laying on its side. There was just a minor amount of chain link fencing up, and it occurred to me, this is the beginning of the big dig. This is how it's going to happen, and this is way before any of the digging began, way before any of the traffic changes, and so it was very new to me and very exciting, because I saw it as an opportunity to jump into a project that I would know nothing about, absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm not an engineer. It'd be just perfect. And as a photographer, it would be a place that I could work and generate my own vision, and work to get back and to recover my personal vision. Working as a professional photographer, you really work a lot from the outside in. Art directors, editors, bless them. I'm glad that they're around, but they have a job to do, and they have a particular spin that they need to create, and it involves making the story look a certain way. That doesn't mean that I can go and work from my gut and make pictures that mean something to me. I have to work for somebody else. So this was an opportunity to really work from the inside out. So I changed as a photographer. I really changed. And for me, it became a real journey of discovery in a lot of ways. Well, this, I'll go back. This is a very interesting site that it's just adjacent to Haymarket, and it's where a lot of roads came together. There's a lot of interchange there. It's where the tunnel from the airport comes into the now whatever they call it tunnel. And it gives you an idea of how the construction was done. What they actually did was they built walls first. Now again, I'm not an engineer, so this is really a really rough description. They built the walls of the tunnel first, and then dug down between the walls. And as they exposed more wall, they would put these cross members in. and brought it all the way down to the very bottom to where they were going to finally lay the actual floor of the tunnel. So this, this is one of the few places where you actually saw sunlight in the tunnel because it was very open. And there was a lot of dust in the air, so it made this, this gorgeous God ray kind of thing. I couldn't resist this, just couldn't resist it. My working day would be whatever time I had to give to this. And it would be anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week, every week. So I tried to get down, on a regular schedule to really give myself some discipline. And so if it were snowing, then I would take snow pictures. And if it were raining, I would take rain pictures and so on. So I dealt with whatever was given to me. This is a footing for a column that is now holding up the Leverett connector. And I just thought it was really beautiful. I didn't just walk into the sites. Well, actually, I did. But I decided to buy myself a hard hat and to be, dressed for success and, So I went to the local industrial supply place and bought a hard hat and bought a safety vest and, showed up with a couple of cameras under my jacket and would go in with the men and women working on the project at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I would be thrown out usually by 7:30. And in fact, for the first 2.5 years, I was thrown out every single time I went down. But it was the only way this work could get done. It was the only way that I could make these pictures. Why did I get thrown out is the question. I got thrown out because I didn't belong there, and because there was the contractors working on this job were very sensitive to safety, and if I had hurt myself, there would have been a problem. So I think that's the big picture story. Yeah. So it took a long time for me to gain the trust of the workers first, and then the artery themselves, the artery administration, for them to understand that I wasn't there to do something negative. I was there to actually photograph what was happening, not as an informed engineer or, somebody that knew exactly what they were shooting, but somebody who was with completely uninitiated, photographing what was going on behind the barricades.
I noticed these pictures are in black and white, and usually when you see photographs nowadays, they're more or less in color. Is any reason for black and white?
The question is, can you all hear the question, basically? Okay, can't hear the question. The question is, why black and white? Because it's a black and white project for me. I tried shooting some color, and the most colorful thing was an orange safety vest. The rest of it just was black and white on color film. So, yeah, and I think that black and white for me, really is more expressive, and it takes it one step away from the reality, which is really what I wanted. I wanted photographs that were more ambiguous, and this is my medium. So I would bring photographs down. I would bring 5x7 prints down to the workers and pass them out on breaks, and make sure that they understood what I was all about. That this is for real. And I didn't realize it at the time, but by doing that, I really became a photographer in their eyes. And so it helped me a great deal. And, you know, it was my way of, you know, here's what I'm doing, this is the genuine part of it, and it earned me a lot of help. The thing I wanted to do, and it didn't take me very long to see that even though there was a lot of technology involved in the Big Dig, that there were as many as, I'm told, 200 cranes in action and you know, countless pieces of heavy equipment. With all of the technology and with all of the mechanical stuff, it's still a handmade project. It's still put together by hand. I mean, this is an iron worker. He's threading a bolt onto one of the girders that would go down that would become a part of the wall. So this is very early. This is 1997, and these were put together in sections underneath the existing artery, underneath the green thing. Remember the green thing that used to be there? And because they didn't want to disrupt traffic, you know, they would have to put them in sections rather than one big beam. It's a lot of hand work. Just incredible landscapes. I mean, you know, some of it was just breathtaking. There are 5 pieces of equipment here working in a very, very tight place. And any one of them could have taken up a lot of that space. Sir? Are
you using an SLR exclusively?
I use rangefinder cameras. The question was, am I using an SLR? I use little rangefinder cameras. That's why they make chocolate and vanilla. Yeah, that's craft. So this, what you're looking at here is that they're digging around the tunnel tube for the blue line at State Street. So what they did was they completely cleaned it off, opened it up, and then rebuilt it. And I'm told this is the shallowest point in the whole tunnel. This is the tunnel is very deep near South Station, and then it comes up, and at this point near State Street, approximately, it's very shallow, which means that the roof of the tunnel is close to the surface. This would have been hard to do in color. You know, this is, you know, more ambiguous. You know, I really didn't want to make a bunch of pictures that were propaganda or like postcards. I wasn't interested in that. And if I didn't find a publisher, I really didn't care, you know, because I was really more interested in making images. Is that sharp? I mean, I can't tell looking at an angle. Is it sharp enough for you? Okay. This project had its own life. You know, it was the kind of thing that you would walk off the street and into one of the sites, and you had just entered this incredible village that, you know, in the middle of a city. I mean, you had no idea that there was a city going on around you or traffic up on top, or just had no idea. And it was a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, holidays, everything. I mean, they worked Christmas. You know, it was insane. Cold weather, hot weather, rain, snow, it didn't matter. It just kept going. But it was this timeless space, and there were times where you forgot whether it was day or night. You know, it had that kind of quality to it. And as soon as you stepped back out of the sites, you know, it was, you're back to Boston. More of the handmade stuff. I was really amazed that at the basic tools used to create the project. This is rebar, and the hand on the right is holding up a very simple, less than $5 bubble level that you can buy in a hardware store. And, you know, each piece had to be just level. So they were using very low tech. I mean, at the lowest common denominator, the technology was very simple. It was handmade with simple tools. was a lot of focus on safety. And every week, every trade, every worker who was, that was an ironworkers meeting. Before their shift, one morning a week, they would have a safety meeting for half an hour, and topics would be discussed, and so there was a lot of attention paid to safety. And as a result, I think it was a pretty safe work site. The injuries were low. I mean, compared to the Panama Canal, where they killed people every day. Sir, there were 3. There were 3 men killed. A different project. No, this was 3 on this job. On this, yes. There, I've put a little section in my book about who they were. How's the flow of these slides going? Could I go faster? You want to go slower? Okay. You want to see more about... Okay. Sure. So I'll speak to that. And there was another question. No tripod. The question is, using 35 millimeter, how were these pictures made without a tripod, and how did they look like they do? Experience. I do this all the time. I shoot 3 rolls a day when I'm not doing anything, so it's just a part of my life. This is a wall section right by the north end, and it's I'm not sure whether it's the east wall or the west wall of a exit from the tunnel coming from the airport. Either the Callahan, I forget which, Sumner, I forget which one goes which way, but anyway, that's what that is. And for me, I saw something totally different. I'm looking at shadow and light and, this kind of cool thing happening.
There's a lot of controversy about the seepage, the water that was draining through one of the tunnels.
Yeah.
Relative to the big gate. Do you have any photographs of that in your collection?
No. The question is, do I have pictures of leaks? And the answer is no, I don't. It's just not, when that leak had the big September leak that, the newspapers keeps referring to, I was on some other part of the site. So I just didn't pay any attention to it. See, I'm really not interested in news, because to me this is all about history. This is not news. It's history. So this is the south tower of the Zakim Bridge in the snow, seen from the other side of the Charles River. So I'm on the Charlestown side of the Charles River, looking back. Do you remember that thing that used to be there on the left? Looks a lot prettier in the snow like this. This is near Purchase Street. Early in the morning in an unbelievable snow squall. Unbelievable. So this is a photograph of a bulldozer simply moving mud, and part of my play, and to have me look at a very basic point of view was to photograph the lowest common denominator, the very simplest meeting point of work and worker, or work and machine. So I photographed a lot of things like this, and this one happens to be a very cool picture, I think. If this room were darker, I mean, you'd see it's moodier. I mean, there's kind of a star coming off of the mud a little bit, so it glows. Around the edges of the sites, there were places that you could actually look through and see something happening, and they had put up plexiglass that, for the most part, stayed pretty clean. You know, people didn't spray paint it or whatever. It stayed pretty clean. You were able to look. And I was shooting this guy here in the foreground, and these two ladies came, and they were just precious. I mean, they were just having the greatest time looking, and they were, you know, you could tell what they were having some kind of chit chat going on about what the hell are they doing, and you know, when are they going to get done? And it was great. It was really great. For a while, I used a macro lens, a lens that allows me to shoot very, very close, and I had it with me a lot to shoot detail, and this picture came out of that. The scale of the project was something I just never could get over. It was just, it's huge. And I was talking to a colleague on the phone, maybe about the time I made this picture. This is actually looking through, from the street level, through a kind of a crack in the pavement at Dock Square. And it's as they were digging down, you can see the walls that are in place. Those walls just appeared out of nowhere, you know, as they dug down and took the mud out between them. And that's what it looked like. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was trying to describe to him what these sites were like. You know, what was it like working on this, you know, place? And I said, it's biblical. I mean, it's like, you know, the pharaohs building something, you know, in 2001. You know, it's amazing. And then it's hard work. I think this is a pile driver, and it's one of those raw, cold late November days where it was just rainy and awful. And the guy's laying in the mud, and he was there for a long time, threading something on this big beam that, you know, he was just working, and, you know, having a conversation with somebody else behind him. But, you know, to me it was like, my God, what are you doing? So there are bits of humanity throughout the project. This is near the lever connector. And it's a table set up for a break in the middle of the summer. This is about 1 o'clock in the morning. In the morning, yeah. This is how the concrete was poured. It was pumped, and it had to be directed by this gentleman. And then there were a crew of people who would then work with the concrete, have it settle into place, and so there was a lot of hand work, even though they were pumping concrete and lots of it. It was still really put in place by men and women, by hand.
Is this concrete for the floor?
Yeah, it's concrete for the floor. And some of these pours were really incredible. You know, there's some pictures later on of the depth of it, but some of them were 15 feet deep and just as wide as the tunnel, and would take as many as 200 of those cement trucks. It'd take 18 hours to pour it. And this one crew would do it, sir. Yeah. This here? Yeah, that's taken with a flash. Well, first of all, the question is about flash or no flash. Why either way? Is that okay? That's okay. I use flash quite a bit, actually, but as a matter of philosophy, because I was really frustrated about particular situations that were just too damn dark, to shoot, even with film that was rated at 3200 ASA, very high-speed black and white film. And there just was something that I needed to capture certain stuff. And so I began to use flash, and it gave me gave me a little more reach, But for the most, philosophically, I really don't like to use flash because I really don't want anybody to know that I'm there, I mean, I would get to a site and not pull out a camera for an hour, just hang out, wait for things, wait for myself to kind of, become part of the woodwork in everybody's thinking, and then put on the camera, which was my cloak of invisibility. So I was talking about the concrete pours, and they would go for 18 hours, many of them. And what would happen is this crew of laborers would cycle, and one person would leave and take a break for 15 or 20 minutes, and then return, and then somebody would then go for their break, and they would just keep working. How long did it take to? Yeah, each pour was, well, if you took this set of pews and this set of pews and doubled it and then dropped it 15 feet, you get the idea of how big a section we're talking about. So it was really, 40, 50 feet at a time, width of the tunnel.
How thick?
How thick? 15 feet and sometimes deeper. Yeah, in one pour.
You had mentioned cement trucks. How many cement trucks were you?
For a pour that size, it'd be close to 200, 150 to 200, and they would just keep coming all day and all night, just keep coming. So this is what I was doing with flash. I mean, there's some images that are just, they're all about flash and they're all about light. And they couldn't be done. So I was really pushing it as far as I could. So this is kind of an abstraction, the back of somebody's head carrying some of these connectors. Now that's a hook. Just amazing things that I saw. I mean, this guy, he's just working with it, and I said, stand back and look at this thing. It's huge. And it was connected to a huge gang of pulleys and wires, and went up to the head of a crane. So this is on the end of a crane. One of 200, I'm told. So more of the abstraction. What you're looking at is a pretty common scene. It's a laborer carrying he's carrying a concrete form panel on his back in the mud. So, there was no way they could use any kind of machinery to go through the mud to, you couldn't pull up a pickup truck and, let's move these over here. They had to be done by hand. This is the demolition, which was a disappointment for me. I shot a lot of the demolition of the green thing, but it was really boring. You know, I mean, I look at the contact sheets, the pictures all kind of look the same. You know, I mean, it was just, there wasn't much happening. I actually like this picture, and it's in the book, because it's about as close as Boston gets to looking like Eastern Europe. So I like it for that. This is the beginning of a concrete pour. That's what it looks like. There are 3 people standing behind me. I'm standing up on a wall, and there's somebody standing there. It was asked, where are these 3 people standing? They're behind me, and the light is coming from behind them, so they're casting a shadow against that wall. This gives you some sense of what the floor of the tunnel looked like. This is where all the concrete went. I mean, this is rebar, and this is only half done. These are thick steel rods that are positioned and then fastened together by wire, by hand. So they're actually kind of sewn together. And so this group of iron workers and carpenters will build it up to the top of that wall section there that you can see in the back. Somebody's standing on it. Do you see that? And that'll comprise a section that they'll pour concrete into. Now, again, I don't have this on any. This is hearsay, but I was talking with an engineer who was working on this project. I said, "Gee, how come? I mean, you've got, the floor is actually fastened to the walls. The walls go actually to bedrock. How come it has to be so thick?" And the answer was that if they didn't make it this thick and this heavy and this dense, that the tunnel itself would float because of the force of the ocean against it. So I'm just amazed that there aren't more leaks. It's just amazing. I mean, what we did in this city and the forces we worked against it's just monumental. The concrete that was used was very, very fancy concrete, and don't ask me what it is, but all I know is that it's very fancy stuff, and it has to cure at a certain rate, and in the wintertime it can cure too fast. So they have to cover it with tarps. And these are actually kind of blanket thermal tarps to keep the concrete at a certain temperature for a certain time so it doesn't cure so fast. This could be anywhere. I mean, this is really what it was about. This is a laborer is sweeping the floor of the tunnel, cleaning it up. And I believe that was a safety concern that, they had to keep things up off the floor so that people didn't trip over it and so on. A lot of people working in a very congested place. So there were people constantly cleaning and constantly pulling stuff up and throwing it away. This is using the flash again, but the way I use flash doesn't look like flash. I never put it on the camera. The flash stays off the camera. This is a laborer who's actually pushing a hose, a concrete pump hose, and putting it in position. you get some idea off to the left there of what they're standing on. They have to kind of walk around this rebar cage that, in the wintertime is very slippery. Actually, it's slippery all the time.
Was the lighting difficult?
Lighting was very difficult. The question was, the lighting difficult? You bet. Real difficult.
Was this the Liberty Tunnel or was this the Dewey?
This is the Liberty Tunnel. Is that finally the name? Is that the name? Is it going to be the Tip O'Neill? I mean, I've heard both. Tip O'Neill Liberty Tunnel. Okay. Now this is very early in the project, and I'm getting back to being a photographer, and this was when I was still trying to break myself up and to break up my vision and to kind of shed a lot of stuff that I had built up to earn a living. So it's a great image, but it doesn't excite me. It also shows the kind of effort that went into making the project. So I'm talking at a lot of different levels here, but what they're doing, this is the big ventilator building that's right next to the Broadway Bridge on Atlantic Avenue. This is the wall before they even dug the hole in the ground that created it. This was the Slurry Wall. And this is all rebar. This happened to be one of the largest rebar walls in the country that's ever been made. And it took 2 cranes to pick it up. And it was picked up off the ground and then held vertically in the air and then slid down into this slot in the ground that was dug to hold it. And this group, this is a composite crew, mostly iron workers, are just guiding it down, making sure that the rebar mat does not hit the wall of this slurry wall. This is a picture of what on top of the roof of the tunnel looks like. There's nothing unsafe about this tunnel. That's unofficial, but believe me, there's nothing unsafe about it. This is probably the only picture that you can actually tell where you are. There's a point of reference. This was actually taken in the Dewey Square Tunnel. This was a section of tunnel that runs under Chinatown that they actually converted and to marry up with the Liberty Tunnel and to continue it on to the Mass Pike and so on. So they had to convert it. You can actually see the tile wall of the former tunnel there. So I tried to really work in a way that I got in touch with what I was feeling in that moment, what I was feeling about being in that particular space, and responding to that vibration rather than my head. I wanted my gut to pick the time to press the button, not my head. I didn't want to edit and then shoot. I wanted to just shoot, just take a picture. They're all full frame. The question is, are they all full frame? That's my discipline, my tradition. Yes? I'm supposed to repeat this question back.
You made choices about, you mentioned about each of them. There's definitely that sense here that you're working on here.
Yeah.
There are solitary people. There is silence. And yet you were in an environment that was very noisy with lots of people that wasn't like the Egyptians. And was that a choice to capture what you said that you had captured?
Yeah, it was a choice, and it was what showed up for me. And your question about, photographing attitude, I held the people I photographed very differently. I saw what they were doing in a lot of ways. Maybe I overdid it on the heroic end. And I don't think I was hiding out at all. If anything, I was pushing the envelope all the time, pushing what I was comfortable with. First of all, I was going to be thrown out at any moment, I didn't belong there, and I, constantly worried, looking over my shoulder, wondering, when's that going to happen? That went on for years. This is 7 years of work in total. And I guess I did shoot some of that attitude, because it does show up in kind of quiet ways, but I don't know. Look at the pictures and let's see if we can identify more attitude. I want to keep everybody happy.
This didn't reflect the paparazzi approach to your photography, did it? You didn't just jump into somebody you thought might be a top official of the job or something of that sort, and grab this photograph.
No, I just photographed what was there. I tried not to be logical. The book is not chronological. It's how the pictures work. I trust pictures. The rest I don't.
I can see there's not a paparazzi approach to it,
So I did spend time trying to photograph tight, clenched jaw kinds of things. This is one of those images, I think. I worked with this guy for, I'm sorry. Whoa. Backwards. Here, I'll do it by hand. I was shooting this guy for the better part of an hour. And I'm holding a flash, so the flashes are popping. I might have shot, 4 rolls of film of him. Because what he was doing was really interesting. And after a while, he didn't see it anymore. And of course, there were sparks flying from welders. I think the question was he aware? Was this subject aware of me? Initially, yes, but after a while, no. And he just went about his business. And I think that's the thing I tried to do. I didn't try to pretend to be one of the guys. I didn't try to be an iron worker or a laborer or anything. I was there to do my job. And I wanted everybody else to do theirs, so. And it's tough to not laugh at some of the jokes and the gigging and gagging that's going on. It's, Of course I laughed.
Did you have any interaction with the Broadway's official photographers?
The thing that the question is, did I have any, were they interested in me photographing for them?
Assuming as an engineering project, the Broadway had official contract
Yeah.
photographers, do you have any interaction with them?
The question is, did I have any interaction with other photographers, particularly official photographers? No. I worked down there for 7.5 years, all that time. And the only time I saw another photographer was at a ribbon cutting event. That was it. I never saw another photographer. Every now and then I'd look down and, I mean, I've got a lens shade from a Hasselblad that somebody dropped during the late part of the construction. So there's evidence that people were there. If anybody's missing a Hasselblad lens shade, see me. This is a little joke, personal joke. I'm sure you all know who Sidewalk Sam is. Sidewalk Sam is an artist who would do renderings of great masters on the sidewalks here in chalk. He was my high school art teacher. So this is kind of, Bob Gilman showing up in my work. This is the kind of attitude that I was after. That moment after a 9-hour shift, that look in the eyes, that's what I was trying to get. The guy's hands are covered with concrete, and he's trying to rub something out of his eyes with, wow. For a while, I photographed just the meeting point of the project and the rest of the world. Where did this project touch upon neighborhoods and so forth? What did that look like, with its boundary line, And it was interesting, to me, because I mentioned earlier there was kind of this village that had its own time and its own, calendar, and it's really amazing world. And there's commuters going to work. And everybody behind this, the plexiglass, has been at work for 5 hours, sometimes longer. This is how you thaw out a frozen glove. This man is a welder, and he had left his gloves in the tunnel overnight, and they were welding gloves, and they're very heavy leather, and they were frozen. They were like boots. They were really frozen. This is kind of a happy accident. You all may recall this huge yellow crane thing that was right next to 93 for more than a year. And it was used to carry sections of the Leverett Connector roadway and put it into place. They were all, those pieces were all made some other place in New Hampshire, I think, and brought down on trucks and then stuck into place, like in a Rector set. So I was up on that thing, and that gantry crane, and there was this big box here, and I was actually waiting for something else to happen, and this guy kept going up, and he was doing something, and he kept making shadows, and it was a problem, because I really didn't want him to be there. But then I started to just shoot the shadows, and this is the last frame on that roll. That's a cool picture. This is that biblical point of view. There's if you look down here at the very bottom, there's a person standing on some rebar. And that roadway going through about a third of the way down the picture, that's A Street in South Boston. So you're looking back from, South Boston is behind me, and I'm looking towards the Prudential.
That last
No, sir. No. That's a building full of artists. I don't know. I don't know what they call it, but it's A Street, and it's all artist lofts in that building. Yes, sir. Question is about the day-to-day spirit of the worker and the teamwork. You know, I got a very quick education about organized labor and how work sites like this work, and these were very unique situations. Because they used composite crews, which meant that there were, in the crews that would work on the various jobs, they would be comprised of ironworkers and pile drivers and laborers all together, which is, on a good day, there's problems, but it worked. It worked. All of the slurry walls were put in by composite crews. So, the attitude was one of pride. I talked with an iron worker and asked him how long would he work on a building. Say he worked on from beginning to end on the iron workers phase of a major building in downtown Boston, like Lincoln Street, that big building that went there. And the answer was a year, maybe a little bit more. And that's a long time for one job. There were iron workers that worked on this job for 7.5 years or 8 years. So they were as amazed and in awe as I was. But there was a great deal of pride throughout the sites. It was really an amazing. Of course, there's day-to-day gripes. I mean, the President of the United States has problems. So this is more of the Flash working tight, So for a while, I only saw the Big Dig. I mean, I only saw stuff happening around the Big Dig. I mean, for me to get stuck in a traffic jam in the Big Dig wasn't a big problem. It was kind of an opportunity to make some pictures out my window of the car, and so this is some. I think they call this dig safe. It's actually a map of some of the utilities under the sidewalk and under the street to let contractors know where important stuff is and to be careful if you dig here. I just like the way that lady's leg, it's great. This is late 90s, like 90, 99. And this is, I believe it's near Causeway Street. And it's in the tunnel as they're digging down. And these are pile drivers who are actually positioning these long tubes, these metal tubes to hold the walls in place as they dug down. Reinforcement, I guess is what you'd call it. And they're all sliding around in the mud. I mean, you got to remember this is all clay, and it's slippery as it's very slippery. I like this guy's attitude. He's precious. This is the north end is behind me, and I'm looking at the traffic going to the left is entering the Sumner Tunnel. This is a temporary roadway that they're pouring some asphalt for. That's what your arms look like after about 9 hours of number 9 rods. All by hand. This is a view from the Broadway Bridge looking north, the Broadway Bridge in South Boston. Again, this is from near Broadway in South Boston, looking north. These are the segments, and it gives you an idea of what those concrete pieces look like. You know, they kind of just put them together, and then I don't know how they sealed them up, but you know, it worked. This is looking from the north back towards the, that's the south tower of the Zakim Bridge. This is a picture I took very late in the project, and it's one I keep coming back and looking at because it really is, I mean, the guy's position of his body and how wrenched around he is. I mean, he's just totally into it. What he's doing is he's breaking up with an air hammer, a jackhammer, some overpour. This is where there was like a spill of concrete, and you know, it happens. And so he had to break it up so that they could put it in a wheelbarrow and take it away. Yes, ma'am. The question is, how did I decide where to go, right? I had no roadmap. I just went I went to places that I saw were busy. And I would I would go back there 2 or 3 times. And maybe I would go back there for 3 weeks in a row, the same place. But I really didn't have any insight about, you know, where the work was going to be. It was all hearsay. You know, I'd ask, gee, is South Boston busy now? And then I'd try it. I'd walk down there. So no roadmap. I did. You mean like legally? You mean like with a cop? No, what I did was, I mentioned to you that I bought a hard hat. That was it was a boo-boo because it was a blue hard hat. And I mean, I stood out like nobody wears a blue hard hat. It was baby blue. I mean, you know. But you gotta understand, I mean, I went into the place to buy the hard hat, and there was a fluorescent caterpillar green or this baby blue. I mean, you know, my eyes hurt looking at the other one. So I ended up getting the right hard hat through some friends. And then accumulated some stickers. So, I mean, that took about 3 years. So, yeah, I got thrown out a lot. And I got very good at finding another place to go in and shoot. Because I was damned if I was just going to turn around and drive back to the North Shore, where I live. So that's the end of this presentation. And again, it's been my pleasure to be here and to show you these pictures and answer your questions. Yes, sir. For a while, I was making some notes, and sometimes it was really only, you know, temperature and wind direction and the day, and it just got to be too much to, keep after. So I didn't. And about the contact sheets, I was shooting, 20 to 30 rolls a week. So I really kind of lost track of, what day exactly, these rolls were from, because I had to keep up with that work, and I actually had to edit monthly, to keep up with the process, because I really believe that the pictures I was making were informing me. We shoot from where we are. You're a photographer? You must be. Contact sheets. We shoot from where we are. The pictures I make today inform and create the platform for the pictures I make tomorrow. It is that subconscious thing working. I really believe in that. So I made it my business to stay on top of that. So it was enough work. I really had enough work. Thanks for your question. Yes, ma'am.
It's not a question. I just want to say I'm not an engineer either, but I read. This is, for everybody else. You said they had to have a slurry wall before they could dig down. Since they had to be able to buttress against something besides the collapse. Well, I think they tried this in the Boston Wall. They tried it in East Boston, or Charleston first, and they Belgian technology. It was the first thing that used for the first time in the world in Belgium. This is the first time they've been used in this country. And what they would do is they had a couple of foot walls, sinking, but they would pour kind of a plastic substance down to hold the walls apart. And then they would, after that, they would pour concrete.
Do you want to come up here? I don't think they can. I'm going to have a problem repeating your question.
Well, no, it's not a question.
Okay. I see.
Plastic in first, because for some reason or other they had to do that, and then because that's not just the walls very quickly, but the concrete took a bit of time to harden. So after they got the plastic in place, they would pour the concrete to hold the walls together very firmly, and they would pump the plastic out.
Right.
So that's what they did in the way of making those slurry walls.
Right. Slurry technically is concrete that doesn't set up, is what it is. It doesn't harden. It's designed not to harden. Yes.
Hi. I wanted to first thank you. Thank you for this is really interesting, and I really enjoyed watching your photography evolve through the project and hearing what you were struggling and growing with, and I really appreciated it. I also, I'm curious if you... He'll repeat it. It doesn't work.
Now it does. Surprise.
I also wanted to know if you were familiar with John Collier Jr., the photographer and visual anthropologist. He'd done a lot of work in remote places and also gave back photographs and was talked a lot about your process, and I was curious if you knew.
I'm not aware of that photographer. I'm not. I try to be as aware as I can, but that's not a photographer I know. I might know his work.
He was an FSA photographer.
Uh-huh. Okay. Not a contemporary. Thanks for your question.
Can you talk a little bit about the selection process? You shot 4,000 rolls of film, and as you got more intimate with this experience over the years, did you find that the photographs that you selected tended to be further into the project, or were they all over?
They were really all over the place. In my workroom, I have large homosoap panels, and I would have 200 or 300 images up all the time. And, I wouldn't concentrate too much on them, but every now and then I would look at them and something would be, and I'd say, no, that's got to go. and, I'd swap it out. I also was involved with a group of colleagues that were meeting monthly to work on projects. And these were all people who were making a living on photography. And I really realized that to develop your own personal vision and to work this way, it's very hard to do on your own. There are things you don't see, you're not ready to see, that everybody else gets. So I had that support for a number of years during that. But the work needs to be your own. I mean, it's one thing to have that kind of support, but you need to be feeding it. You know what I mean? So I just stayed on top of it and tried to make a once a month appointment with the darkroom to make work prints, and whether I had a lot or whether I liked what I had. I mean, there were times when I'd be making work prints and just, what the hell is this? What am I doing this for? But it was because I wasn't seeing it. It was all happening so fast.
In seeing it, one can't help in looking at 70 or so slides to see how much you appreciate shadows. I mean, the shadows are almost, they're photographs. And I was wondering, sometimes we discover shadows after we've taken the picture because we didn't see it. But one can't help but remember those cinematographers in the 30s that would always have their little polarized lens looking for shadows when they were making films. Is that something you used? Is that something that you acquired, a taste for shadows? Is that something that happened with the work naturally?
I think it's something that shows up. It's not a conscious thing. I mean, once in a while, that you might have seen an image where there's a guy's head that's just glowing, and that was another happy accident. Where this something else was happening, and what I noticed was how the guy's head was lighting up every time he walked through the shaft of light. So I tried to stay out of being real conscious of working, being clever, with the shadows. I tried to stay away from that because I was interested in feeling something, and having the pictures be more expressive. You know what I mean? Thanks for your question.
Of all the photos that you took, are there any one or two that stick out in your mind as most satisfactory?
That's an interesting question, and I've been asked it before. And my favorite pictures, the gold box pictures, that they change all the time. But there are pictures that were kind of turning points. Pictures that were signals to me that I had let go of something, that I had ceased being this kind of a photographer and stepped into something totally new. So those kind of pictures were, those are important to me. I think they're more important to me than the pictures that are, wow, great image. So, did I answer your question? Thanks for your question. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
If I take a look at this photo here, and then I compare it to the one of the worker that you watched him go back and forth for a period of time.
The glowing head guy?
Yeah, and he was conscious of you going back, and then you said after a while he didn't even pay any attention to me. He had the stickers on his hat. Now I thought that was just a great photo. That would appeal to me more than, say, that one. But that's...
Yeah, I tried to find a closing image. It was hard. So this image kept coming up, and the designer actually picked this image. So, I had enough images to make 3 books this size. And to make the cut I mean, as a photographer, you know that sometimes you have to let go of pictures that you really, really love to make the whole piece work right. You know, there are pictures that just want to take over and just they're out of sync with the rest of it, even though they're great images. Thanks.
Have you ever attempted to sell any of these photographs to newspapers?
Not to newspapers, no. No. Boston Magazine has been they've been very good to me, and from time to time they'll buy a print to illustrate something in the magazine. But I didn't peddle, you know, I took no assignments. I accepted no assignments around this work. None. Kept it, I tried to keep it real clean.
Simply in preparation for the book you were going to write anyway.
I didn't start shooting with the book in mind. I really didn't. The book really came out of, you know, the volume of work began to come together, and yeah, that's how a book happened.
Is there any way you could have gotten a permit, whatever?
No. I'd still be waiting for it. I'd still be waiting for it.
Well, I think instead of bullying you out for everybody or whatever, they should have welcomed you in open arms as a...
You're very kind. Thank you.
valuable work.
Thank you.
You know, once the big dig is finished.
Yeah, once the big dig is done, you know, there's no more big dig. I mean, you're going to have a Zakim Bridge and a tunnel and so forth. The big dig was the act of becoming. So this is what this is all about. Thank you.